How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another week of CS2304. I'll get the name right. And welcome to this week's lecture, and or at least intro. I hope you're doing well. And first off, want to thank everybody for providing feedback through the polls and that kind of stuff too. We'll be talking about some of that specifically here in just a minute. But before doing so, here's just a kind of a welcome slide for the day. Nice little joke meme here as well too. I came across it yesterday, and it totally jives with how Excel works. So hopefully it gives you a good laugh as well too. But again, this week we'll have another hands-on, we'll have another poll, and it'll all be due on Sunday. So I'm going to continue with that date format. Just want to thank everybody too for that have been posting discussion comments and other students helping out answer the questions and help out as well too, especially on Sunday where I'm not, as I've mentioned before, I'm not going to really be watching it as closely. So thanks everybody else for helping step in and help each other out as well too. So a couple of just the poll results. I'd be interested in doing a live session at some point this semester. It does seem like there's quite a bit of interest, and so this week's poll will have potential days or times of days that we can try it out, and I'll schedule it here in the next couple of weeks, and we'll just do one session that's live, and I'll record it and post that as the recording for those that aren't able to make it. So this one was just kind of a fun one because my wife, she actually is really good with spoken languages and I'm not. And so it's always kind of interesting to hear what others do. And so we kind of joke between ourselves that with our kids, she'll cover the spoken languages, I'll cover the computer languages, and then our kids will be totally screwed up. But anyways, kind of interesting to see how many of you know 2 or more, and there's somebody that's 4 or more. I almost wonder if it's 4 or the more category. So I'll have to reach out to that student, find out. But pretty cool. And so regarding suggestions and feedback and whatnot, I was watching them throughout the week too, and saw pretty early on that somebody had said, it'd be great to have links to the Kubernetes documentation for the different pieces. And I thought, that's a pretty valid point, and I should do that. So we added that as well. And this will actually be very useful for you as well too, because if you are planning to pursue the certification, you are allowed to use the Kubernetes documentation site during the certification. So at least being familiar with how it's structured and what information is there is useful. So I will continue to do better with posting links to the documentation throughout. One student posted, I completely missed the point on why I should use Kubernetes or how containers can actually be useful. And while that's a much larger discussion, the idea here being is that, again, with containers, we have a standardized way to package up applications. And so now I don't have to figure out, okay, what dependencies, okay, I need Python with all these different dependencies or a very specific version of stuff or Node or whatever. I have a standardized way to package up my application and to ship it and move it around. And so, for example, you could build an application on your machine, push it up, and then I can run out my machine, and it's guaranteed to work the same way on my machine as it did on your machine. And if you haven't done a lot of application development or managing apps or deploying them, the old way of doing things where you would actually go onto a server and install the software and everything works for your first app, but once you want to run a second app on that same machine, it gets really complicated. How do you make sure that versions aren't stepping on each other's toes or that kind of stuff? And it gets really hard to do that. And containers, one, the isolation, but again, that ability to ship and kind of standardize that is really, really powerful. And if you're interested in learning more about how to actually build containers and do development, I do another CS2304 class on Docker containers, and it goes definitely more on the development side rather than on the running side. So feel free to check that out. One of the items I got repeatedly quite a few times was about posting the content sooner, and I'm going to try to do a little bit better with that. A couple of students were like, "Can you post it even a week or 2 in advance?" And unfortunately, I don't have that ability to do that. This is the first semester we're doing this, and I'm making the content as I go, and I've only got so much time each week to be able to put towards it, and so unfortunately I can't get weeks ahead because I don't have the time to get weeks ahead. So I'm sorry, but hopefully with it being just one credit, it's not too overwhelming to just keep up with it. Got quite a few comments about the video and production and everything. So thanks I do put a lot of work into it. I've got a nice little stream video production setup here. Maybe I'll have to do a little behind the scenes video at some point. But just as a quick tip, I do all my videos in one take. I don't do any post processing or editing or that kind of stuff just because I don't have the time nor care. I don't expect my videos to be perfect. So if there's mistakes or oops, there's a typo and now I've got to debug, well, you're just going to see me do some live debugging. And in fact, actually, this week's video, the beginning, I at the very beginning, you'll see that it shows my face before it cuts to the intro. I just started on the wrong scene, and oops, I noticed it after I recorded, and I'm not going to re-record a 30-minute talk or lecture. So, oh well. Yeah, if any of you are interested in kind of behind the scenes of how I do things, let me know, and I'd be happy to do that. And then the final one was go over the last week's hands-ons questions in the intro videos, and I totally meant to do that, and I guess I just kind of fell away from it because the first couple weeks were pretty straightforward. But this week I did notice that there were quite a few people that got stuck, especially in the last one, so I wanted to go through those. So just as a note too, on any of the questions where it's okay, what's the secret value? It has little curly brackets. Both values work. So if you include the curly brackets or if you don't, that's fine. And it's kind of interesting to see the change in percentages of who includes it and who doesn't. So the first one, most people didn't include it. Pretty straightforward. The second one, same thing. But it's interesting that the percentages change a little bit between them. So whatever. And so the status code when the probes were failing was a 404. That's correct. And for the most part, I'm not going to go like into and explain it unless it was pretty obvious that a lot of people missed it. What's the secret value that was displayed on the fixed probe path? Who is it? That one was fairly straightforward as well. And if you did get stuck with it, there's a little bit of help in the discussion on that one as well. When we remove an HTML file used for the readiness probe, the service is updated within 5 seconds. And this one is false because remember the period is 5 seconds, but it's got to fail multiple times, and the default failure threshold is 3. So that means it has to fail 3 times in order for it to not be ready. And then at that point, the service is updated, and that pod is no longer an endpoint on the service. After restoring the HTML file, the default success threshold is 1. So if we're in a failure state, the very first time it passes, it's going to get registered back and go from there. So the endpoint should be pretty quick to get going there. And finally, this last one, looking at the readiness probe example, what is the maximum number of seconds that might pass before the container registers as unhealthy, assuming the HTML file is no longer valid? Now, the correct answer here is 15, and I see that there's quite a bit of spread here, and I want to explain why it's 15. So let's, I'm going to jump over to Chrome here, and so we're going to look at the manifest probe, or the probe. The thing to look at here is the probe has a period seconds of 3. So that means every 3 seconds the probe is going to run. So count 3 seconds, go. 3 seconds, go. And so this probe is going to fire every 3 seconds. In this case, the failure threshold's at 5. So that means that every 3 seconds the probe is going to go, and it has to fail 5 times in order for it to be unhealthy. Okay. And so 3 times 5 is 15. Now, I guess technically you could say, all right, if a probe just went off, it might be up to 3 seconds before the next time it ran. Maybe it's 2 seconds, and then times the 15. So it could be like 17 or just shy of 18 seconds, I guess. But the idea here being is okay, it's going to be about 15 seconds from a failure to it working. So probably actually I maybe should have reworded that to what's the minimum number of seconds, since there's a little bit of flux after that too. So anyways, that was the idea with that question there. If you got it wrong, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it too much. And that's pretty much it. So again, this week we're going to be talking about configuration in Kubernetes. If you've got questions or more feedback or things that I can do to continue to improve the class or the way that it's organized or the materials presented, that kind of stuff, feel free to let me know. You don't have to wait for the next poll. Feel free to just send me a message. Oh, and one final thought. There were quite a few folks that asked about setting up a Piazza site. And while I do think that that would be a good idea, if I remember correctly, there was some sort of potential legal thing, or like Piazza hasn't been approved by the university. So I don't know if I can use Piazza, but I'll check into it and see if I can figure it out. So, anyways, have a great week and good luck with the material this week. And as always, feel free to reach out if you need me. Thanks.